Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar today, Maximizing Coalition Sustainability Through Partnerships. This is the second of a two-part webinar series that the GW Cancer Center has hosted on maximizing coalition sustainability. And today we're focusing on diversifying funding and fundraising. And Ruda, are we recording?
Yes, we're recording.
Okay, we're recording. And does it look like people are still calling in, or should we go ahead and keep going?
I think we can go ahead.
Okay, great. So a few housekeeping items. Please make sure that you're connected to audio. So right now, all of the audio lines are muted, but you can make sure you're connected to audio. I guess you wouldn't hear me if you're not connected to audio, but hopefully the slide would indicate you click on the phone icon. If you're getting any feedback, you may be connected both by phone and computer, so you can either lower the volume on your computer to 0 or just use your computer audio and hang up your phone if you're getting an echo. So also, we have our Q&A feature. So you can use the chat feature or activate your Q&A feature by clicking on the 3 dots on your screen, on the bottom of your screen. And feel free to send questions or information that's relevant. Our speakers may monitor those, or we may facilitate those at the end, depending on what's happening and the ability to multitask. But we will certainly get to your questions at the end of both speakers' presentations if they're not addressed during the presentation. I also want to acknowledge that this work is supported by a cooperative agreement from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So sorry about that feedback. And today we're going to be discussing how resource sharing can enhance coalition membership and engagement. We're going to be talking about a successful public-private partnership and talk about entrepreneurial approaches to seeking resources to support coalition activities. So I am very pleased to turn this over to our first presenter, Sunga Lee. She is the head of Country Accelerators, Shaping the Future of the New Economy and Society at the World Economic Forum. And through this work, she's committed to building prosperous, inclusive, equitable economies and societies that create opportunity for all. Before she joined the World Economic Forum, Sunga was the Director for Members and Partners Development at the Union for International Cancer Control, and that's where I was able to meet her and hear and experience some of her talents in terms of the topics she'll be talking about today. She focused her efforts in building memberships and partnerships at UICC to support the global cancer community. And before that, she worked at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, focused on providing financial services for the poor and building global advocacy programs. Sunga was also the founding member and director of global partnerships at the Alliance for Financial Inclusion, which is a global network of financial sector policymakers and private sector working towards a more inclusive financial system development. And she served as a board committee member at the United Nations Capital Development Fund, Shaping Inclusive Finance Transformations, and the Better Than Cash Alliance. In addition, her earlier work spans across working at the United Nations, International Trade Center, and LG Company. So I am very pleased to be able to turn this over to Sunga now. And I just need to see where I can hand her the ability to advance the slides. I think I lost my view. I'm sorry. Ruda, if you're able to do that, can you do that for me? If not, I apologize.
Maria, or Ruda, are you? Sunha, you are the presenter now.
Okay, thank you.
Before I start, I thought we will have a quick poll. So shall we put the poll up, please? And we have 2 questions. The first question is, what are your main reasons for partnership? If you're in existing partnership, what are some of the key reasons why you're doing that? You will see in the poll questions on the right side we have some areas that we put in. Is it for funding, advocacy, communication support, knowledge, information or data, networking, connections, other in-kind support, or any other reason? And we also have a second question, which is what kind of organizations do you partner with most? Are there government agencies, philanthropic organizations, private sector companies, other NGOs, or any other organizations? So if you can take a few seconds to respond to that poll, that would be very helpful. Great. So how do we see the poll results? Can we see the poll results now? Great. Can you all see the poll results?
Yes.
Okay, so here we see what are your main reasons? Mostly knowledge, information, networking, and connections. And then the second question, mostly you partner with government agencies and other NGOs, less on private sector companies and philanthropic organizations. Great, thank you so much. So this do show us we have a pretty diverse, actually, audience that looks into different areas of partnership and also different organizations. And this is one of the key points that we're discussing today to broaden our horizon in terms of partnerships and also the objectives of it. So I will move on to a quick presentation that I've prepared. I also want to share the objective of my presentation is to provide you a very brief framework, some framework that it might be useful for you to have a look at, take it and apply in your own situation. But this is a quick theory. I'm not going into details of any of these strategies, given the time limit that we have. And also, we will share a little bit of examples. I also won't go into too much detail, since we will have the second speaker, Rolf, who will go into a bit more practical examples from his own experience. So with that in mind, I will go to our next slide. So my presentation will cover 6 key areas that I think is very important to just keep in mind when you're developing partnerships. So first is the partnership goals and program objectives. Second, understanding the value proposition. Third, really knowing your partners and the landscape of your partners. Fourth, the opportunity and risk that we need to analyze. And fifth, measuring success together. And then I will just quickly share some global examples thanks to my colleagues from the Union for International Cancer Control, who shared with me some examples that I can share with you today. So maybe if we can go quickly to the first area, I think this is one of the foundations and one of the most important things before even if you go into the partnership, setting very clear objectives, communicating it very clearly, and also understanding your partnership goals. It's easy to say, but sometimes when you look and review some of these program documents, you will find the objectives are not very clear, and that could hinder any future partnership. I am providing you with a very simple tool to make it clearer, but this is of course not the only tool, and you can use different phrases and ways to think about your objectives being clear. So this is an example of how you can phrase your program objectives, also to make clear to others in understanding what you want to achieve. So when you look at good examples of program objectives, there's definitely a verb indicating a clear change, which means that you currently know the current state and you want to improve to a certain extent. It could be, increasing something, decreasing, reducing, adopting, but it's good to have that clear indication of verb. Then you also think about what change you want to make. Is it changing behavior, changing the knowledge, changing technologies, or changing coverage in terms of access, number of population? So that's an important part of the objective. And third is who is going to make that change and who is targeted. So are you targeting individuals to make that change? Are you targeting specific communities or in the region? Are you targeting a specific group of populations, such as women or children? So that's another important aspect to think of when you're phrasing your objective. And then it's always useful to have any additional specificity, such as timeline, a geographic target, anything that you can add that might make your objective even clearer. So this slide shows you a quick example, and it will be a good exercise when you go back and just look at whether your objectives have all these 4 elements in there. One example could be we, through this program, want to increase taxation level on cigarettes in 5 states by the end of 2022. Then you have all 4 elements in your objective. Or you want to develop a strong online peer learning network on women's cancer, established, which means it doesn't currently exist, by your coalition members from Washington, D.C. And you can add a timeline if that's useful. So having that very clearly stated program objective would very much help your partnership moving forward. And then the second element in this phase is also thinking about partnership goals. And I was quite happy to see, I think many of the audience have their partnership goal beyond funding, because some organizations often think that partnership is only about funding. And especially in these climates, that's definitely not the case. So you can think about how to get expertise from your partnership or additional information or data that might be useful in achieving your goals. Sometimes it's very helpful to share human resources, either getting a secondee or you sending your colleagues to another partner organizations to learn, or share a pool of consultants that work towards the same objective. So that's another area you can think of. I think there were also audiences in this webinar saying that you do partner for networking and channels, communication. So these are all the areas that you can think of that can advance your goals through partnership. There could be more, and it's always good to set that expectation up front so that you have the same expectation with your partners, what's the goal in this partnership and the different roles that you can play. So once you have that foundation laid out for yourself, having clear objectives for both your program and the partnership goals, then it will be important for you to start thinking about what is your value proposition that you can offer to your partners. So, of course, you have already identified what you want, and then you also want to think what you can offer. And we say that in a value proposition because you can also tailor-make and package it in a different way, depending on the partners that you are approaching. This is a simple way to think about value proposition. And one is those partners who are much more interested in the impact that you make, then you might want to really strengthen your value proposition and communicating the impact you would achieve. And there are partners who might be less interested in the impact, but the benefits that you provide. And this is not a bad thing, because if you find the partners that are aligned and they're interested in the benefit you provide, but you also gain from the partners what you need towards your impact, that is also a win-win partnership. So kind of balancing these two out in your value proposition, I think could be a successful strategy to think about. So when you think about impact, these are all the areas that you might want to highlight when you go into the discussion with your partner. So what are the key problems that you're trying to solve? What are your clear objectives that we just looked at for using some of those phrases and frameworks? It might be also good to do some homework, look at who are other organizations who might currently working on solving the same problem, and if there are other organizations doing that, it might be good to also think about what your unique value proposition is. What is your unique position or something that you bring to the table that other organizations don't bring, and making that quite clear. It would be good to have measurable indicators and data, and of course, it's important to state that you have thought about sustainability of your program in terms of the impact. So sustainability doesn't mean that your program has to run forever, but that the impact is going to be long-term. In terms of benefits, there's different way of thinking about the different benefits that you want to provide to your partners. It can be either visibility, so this could sometimes help with the private sector partners, whether you give them a bit of brand recognition, or showcasing some of their cases if it's aligned. There could be also partners interested in your reach or access to network. Similar to what you've been seeking, they might be interested in your knowledge sharing. Also, there could be organizations that want to associate with your organization because of the good reputation you have. There could be organizations who just want to learn from what you have been doing. So you can also think about the different areas of benefits that you can put into your value proposition as well. Once you do that, it's, I think, also very important to know your partners and potential partners. And sometimes we think this is very obvious, but you will often find organizations that go into a partnership discussion without really understanding what the partners want and need, or even they're either aligned with you or willing to partner with you. When you think about knowing your partners, these are some questions that you might want to brainstorm with your colleagues who's working together with you. And in the beginning, it's good to have a wide range. So I often suggest my colleagues to do a very broad horizon scanning. Don't limit yourself. Look at all kinds of different industry, all kinds of different sectors, and start mapping out the potential partners within the current environment. I think, and this is all something that we have been all experiencing these days. We are all going through the COVID pandemic, which is a very specific environment. So do assess your partners based on the current environment that we are in, especially if you are thinking of private sectors. There are business sectors that are actually flourishing because their services in a high demand. If you think about technology company, education, online meeting supporters, all these private sectors, but there are sectors that are really declining, and probably it might not be the right time to discuss partnership, or there might be, in this specific situation, partners by looking for different benefits and interests. So having that in mind, I think is very important and something that we are all currently experiencing. Definitely go do your homework, understand what your partner's objectives are and what kind of collaboration they have been having with other NGOs. Be very clear what they can bring to the table and what you can bring to the table. Also, as I just mentioned, it would be good insight to know whether they're interested in the impact that you're making or whether they're interested in some of the benefits that they might get from the partnership. Also good to know whether they're into a long-term partnership discussion or they're looking for opportunistic partnership. These are some good criteria, a quick knowledge that you can gather before you go into the discussion. And once you have this broad horizon scanning, and you might come up with 100 different names of government institutions, philanthropic organizations, etc., that you can partner with. And there's some framework that you can use to narrow down who you want to target first. So this is a very simple framework that you can use. There are other ways to also start categorizing it. So this framework, you think about the willingness and alignment of your partner or potential partners. So if you see there is a high alignment and there's also high willingness of the partners, no-brainer, you need to go super proactive and see what you can get out from that partnership. You can have very high willing partners, but there are no alignment. Then this is the area that you need to be super careful, because some organizations, because they're high willingness, sometimes they jump on this partnership. oftentimes this can have a negative impact in terms of long-term if you are not aligned, or not a successful experience that you actually ruin a potential long-term partnership that you might have. So keep it in your radar, just observe and see whether you can find that alignment in objectives or approaches. Of course, there could be partners that are super aligned with you, maybe doing very similar work, working on cancer control, have similar objectives, but some reason they're not very willing to partner with your organization. This is also a good group to concentrate as your second category. So first, go with the super proactive ones. Second, if you need additional partners, look at this category and see whether you can convince some of the aligned partners to join your objectives. And then the no-brainer, of course, is there's no willingness and no alignment. And this is sounds very obvious, but again, there are organizations who don't do this analysis and still go for companies or organizations just because they're big, they have a good brand reputation, or maybe they're very well known in the community. However, if your assessment is low in terms of willingness and alignment, then your efforts will go in vain. So it's important that you identify these and then just put really in the bottom of the list so you don't waste your and your team's effort in building partnerships. Once you do that, I think it's important to also think about opportunities and risk. And of course, we can spend a lot of time here. With the limited time today, I'm not going into the details. Many of you, I believe, know the most traditional way of thinking about opportunities and risks. That's the SWOT analysis, always helpful. When you think about opportunities, also do think about the timing. As I mentioned, for example, the current timing, we are in a very, very different timing than any other time through the COVID-19. So some of your opportunities and risks might completely change. So it's a good time to kind of reevaluate some of your partnerships. Think about the maturity of partnership, short and long-term trade-offs that you can make, and definitely cost and benefits. We sometimes think partnership is always good to have, but there's also a high cost to it in terms of your human resources, your time, your energy, your effort, also building consensus. So think about all the costs and see whether the benefit outweighs the cost in going into the partnership. Definitely important to also keep in mind all the risks that you might face. And this is a discussion that if you have a board, if you have councils that you're accountable for, definitely an area that you might want to flag whenever you go into new partnerships. So is there any reputation risk for your organization? Is there a financial risk? Sometimes donations seem positive all the time, but if you bring in a big donor, there could be a financial risk when they suddenly stop, and sometimes that happens. So it's good to think about that and diversify it. Think about whether this partnership will put your organization in risk in terms of setting direction. Are these partners very interested in working together and influencing your agenda? Are they just providing expertise and data? These are things that you might want to think and measure the risk, as well as some other risks that are listed here. So if you also quickly think about this, one of the nice exercises that you can do with your colleagues in your team is another matrix that you can use, and start putting those organizations that you have identified in the previous slide to this matrix as well. So definitely if there are organizations with high opportunities and low risk, that's the area that you want to focus. And then if you do these two exercises, you might end up a handful of organizations that you want to very proactively target. And then there are organizations that you think brings great opportunities, but also the risk is high. Then this is the area that you might want to develop your risk appetite together with your board or with your stakeholders and agree how much risk that you want to take. Because many partnerships do have risks. So it doesn't mean if you identify risk that you don't want to have a partnership. It's identifying risk. So either you can decide on you have a mitigation plan. So if it's about reputation, think about your media plan, think about how you're going to respond. If it's about other risks, making sure that you at least thought about it and you have the mitigation plan is the reason why we do this risk analysis, not to completely take out any risk, but have that a plan in place. Of course, no brainer if there's no opportunity, and high risk, no-go area. And then there is an area that there is low opportunity, but also low risk. And you have in the previous slide identified them as a willing and aligned partners. These are the partners that you might want to keep in your radar and see whether the timing could be right at some point to bring them back into your partnership discussion. This is a very quick slide since I don't want to go into detail. One of the areas that many of us as organizations are not very good at is measuring success together. Because sometimes we shy away, we don't want to show all our cards, we don't want to share all our indicators, so we only want to look at the successful cases and we don't measure the progress together. But it has been proven in so many cases, if you are very transparent, you're honest, and you measure progress together, identify where you lack in terms of partnership, clearly communicate how partners' satisfaction level was, this always helps in the long-term building good, successful partnerships. So that's where it's good that you think about measuring success together and also see how you can develop different indicators together. There are some indicators here that if it's useful, you can take it, apply it to your context. If not, there are other indicators that your organization might be using, and it's good to share with your partners on that as well. I mentioned I used to work at the Union for International Cancer Control. My colleagues were kind enough to share with me some examples. Given the time that I have, I'm not going to go through it, but I thought actually UICC is one of the really good examples in how they work on partnerships. So I thought maybe I'll quickly talk through that. If you are interested, I understand the slides are going to be shared, and I did include my ex-colleagues' contact details there, Laura, who is working on membership, and Nico, who's working on capacity building, and feel free to reach out to them if you want to learn more about these cases, as I don't think I will have time to go into the different cases that they have provided. But just to talk about the Union for International Cancer Control, which I used to work before joining the World Economic Forum, I'm quite confident to say they have one of the very most successful partnership model that I have seen, where you really develop a multi-sectoral partnership model and think about the different roles that each and everyone can play in terms of research institution, professional association, patient groups, but also looking into multinational organizations, UN organizations, including the WHO, how to work with government on national cancer control planning, and looking into philanthropic foundations, but also private sector who aligns and works together with you in terms of achieving your cancer control objectives. So this is the model that UICC has, and I think if you want to learn more about it, feel free to contact UICC. I did put this slide on Cancer Advocate Program because this is where I met Mandy and where we discussed for the first time with other cancer control organizations how to build good partnerships. So if you want to learn more about this program, I think I mentioned that Nico, my colleague, would be happy to be in touch with you as well. I am going to stop my presentation here since I think I used up all my time, and I definitely want to hear from our next speaker, Wolf. These are some of the countries in the program, and there are some examples of other countries that working on partnership with clear objectives that later you can read through and look into the slides as well. So thank you so much for listening. Thanks for much for the time, Mandy. And now I think I will hand over to my next speaker, Rolf.
Mandy,
okay, hi guys. Mandy, are you going to introduce, or shall we just go into it to cut some time?
Mandy, you're muted.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just briefly say that Rolf is the CEO for the Cancer Association of Namibia, and I met him and Suga in Kazakhstan as well. We can include his bio in a follow-up email so that he can optimize his time, maximize his time presenting, but I'll go ahead and hand it over to you now. Thank you, Rolf.
Pleasure, welcome, and thanks everyone. I'm just going to talk briefly about what we do best here in Namibia, in Africa. So from Windhoek, Namibia, Africa. Hi there. And we really want to ask how we can maximize on coalition sustainability. And we really want to focus on long-term partnerships because those, I think, benefit our organizations much more. So like Sunga said, you've got short-term partnerships, but very often they can really burn your passion for what you are doing as well. And you really want to find those gold partnerships, those gold standard partnerships that you can really leverage on and work on forever. And it's not just about fundraising, it's just not just about money, but it's also about expertise, networks, bringing the right people to the party to make a difference. So we want to ask ourselves, what is the goal of our organization? And because in this case study that I'm going to present to you about what we do here in Namibia, we want to help our patients, first and foremost. That is our cause. We really want to make a difference in the lives of the people whom we work for. And we want to build coalitions that are sustainable in both funding and expertise. It's not just about the money, it's about bringing the right people to the table at the right time. But then obviously we need to make it worth their while as well. Now, how do we make it worth their while? Say that we have got deliverables that you want to provide. So if you are going to offer or you're going to ask, you must be able to trade it off. It's not just about being seen as a welfare or an NGO or a charitable organization. It's about making a difference and making your business partners, your project partners look good in the process as well. We want measurable outcomes because we want to show that we're responsible in what we do, we're sustainable in what we do, and we're transparent in what we do. And when we are those three things, we are sustainable, we are transparent, we are accountable. It means that we've got brand identity alignment, because there's nothing worse than partnering with an organization that is a fly-by-night or that might use the money for something else that it was intended for. We want to contribute positive to the brand, and that is through positive brand association. We want to make sure that they are happy to be associated with us. So I want to tell you about our situation here in Namibia, and we presented this at the World Cancer Congress a few years ago in Malaysia. It's all about the Cancer Association of Namibia turning one of our biggest private local banks, Bank Windhoek, into Apple stores for one entire month of the year. Bank Windhoek Cancer Apple Project was initiated exactly 20 years ago, and we believe that an apple a day can help keep cancer away. What basically happens is that we have created smart partnerships with different stakeholders who all come together to sell apples for one entire month right across the country in all Bank Windhoek branches. So each staff member sells apples. If you go to a bank counter, you have the opportunity to buy an apple. If you have your client list, the bank sends it out to their clients and they help buy apples. And this is a good way in which we can generate funds by not asking specifically Bank Windhoek to give us a donation, give us a monetary donation. We actually ask, can we make use of your infrastructure, your network, your resources, your human capital to tell the story of the Cancer Association, to create awareness on cancer, to educate the public on cancer, and then we engage the schools as well. And we challenge all the schools to sell apples. The school that sells the most apples, and we work it out according to a formula, they win some cash prizes. But what is unique about this 20-year program of selling apples is that we have created amazing partnerships. So here we start with Cancer Association, with Bank Windhoek forms an alliance, and then we go over to fruit and veg. This is Namibia Fresh Produce. It's the biggest fresh fruit market and distributor nationwide. So the two of us, Cancer Association, Bank Windhoek, pitches to our fruit buyers and sellers, and they literally go to South Africa and they buy up about 1 million apples that will be sold for 1 month during the year. Then we all go to Solitaire Press and we say, we don't want money from you, but we definitely want your printing resources and your network of distribution. So would you be so kind as to print for us all the documentation, the flyers, the print work, and then we go and we distribute it to all Bank Windhoek branches and schools nationwide. And this is then where the selling of the apples goes nationwide and to the public at large, and we actually get to sell apples and use that money to raise funds while creating awareness. Now, NamPost Couriers is our national postal service, and FP to Toy Transport is then again our biggest private transporting service. We are very thankful that they transport our fruits throughout the country, but it doesn't just stop with one event a year. Through this smart partnership and network of hope, we've actually aligned ourselves that these project partners become our preferred supplier of services, and they also give the Cancer Association of Namibia discounted rates on other events or transportation services. So when we need to send off commodities, we need to send off supply services, we need to even send off nappies, stomach care products throughout the country, we make use of NamPost courier services. And they do it at a reduced rate because they know that this is a value, a great value proposition partnership. Their name is linked with a trusted brand and there's continuity straight through. Obviously, we want our bank to make sure that the money is 100% correct, so we've got an auditing firm on board, and the public wants to know that we are doing everything above board, and then we can give them a beautiful audited result at the end of the program and say this is truly where your money is going, and this is how you are impacting lives. So this reaffirms again that brand strengthening, brand positioning, brand affirmation. All partners are doing the right thing at the right time for the right purpose. Marua Superspar is one of the biggest chain store groups, the Superspar group in Namibia, and they supply the gifts, sponsors of stationery to the winning schools, because in our African context, in Namibian context specifically, education is quite close to our hearts, and stationery is quite expensive. So we challenge the smaller rural schools out there in the bush, sell as many apples as you can. We know your history, we know the economic circumstances, and you might just have an opportunity to win one of these amazing literature and stationery packs prizes that can boost your school again. Now, JLO Productions is our sound engineer. The Namibian Broadcasting Corporation is the national broadcaster. And how would we get the message across in your low and middle income African or Pacific or South American, Latino American nations? With us, a little bit different from the States, perhaps, Western contexts, we have illiteracy is a big problem, and we also understand that when people have access to radio services, they hear, it makes an earworm, we say in German, it makes, it sticks, and then we basically get the message across. So we want the right partners, media partners at the right time. And you know what? The national broadcaster wants to be associated with such a worthy project that has been around for 20 years. And this is why I constantly always reaffirm, stay in touch and be aligned with the right project partners that is sustainable throughout. Short-term partners, wonderful, we all need them, but it's those long-term partners that we want, because those are the ones that stick with each other through thick and thin. Safari Hotels is one of the biggest hotel groups in the country, and they look after our catering and our events, not only for this project, but this is the home of the Cancer Association. We have our fundraising events here. We have our gala dinners here. We have the most amazingly beautiful fundraising breakfast with women, 800, 1,000 women dressed in pink during October, all standing together, or rather sitting and sipping champagne in solidarity for a good cause. And that is what we want. We want to have that partnership. And it's all because the Cancer Association of Namibia and Bank Windhoek came together and said, we want to effect change. Now, quickly, if we go through the highlights of 20 years, and this is what we actually want everyone out there to strive towards. When you are an NGO, when you are fighting for your cause, set your targets, know where you come from and where you want to go. We started with a humble $25,000 Namibian dollar donation when this project was started. And we are ending with 3 million per annum in Apple sales. It is an amazing journey to see how Apple sales can truly influence and impact lives positively. How the money that we use, we use and we impact lives, build homes, we support patients financially, we fly patients to the treatment centers, because that's in an African context, it's a bit difficult, it's a bit challenging. But if you just look at these beautiful smiles, beautiful faces, children, all different ages, races, it's all about the bank's motto, the mission statement going forward. Together we do better. And this is what we want to do. We want to make the fight on cancer better. And this exact program, this project, we have sent over to so many other fellow African nations. And it is a program that is being replicated as we speak, and we're so proud of it. One of the key areas where the money of the project goes to is the Cancer Association of Namibia's National Cancer Outreach Program. It was established in 2015, and by 2019, we had screened more than 40,000 Namibians in all parts of the country, complementary. Now, Namibia, for those of you who might not know, Southern African nation, Southwest African nation, there are about 2.5 million people only. We're a super desert country, so dry. And right now as well, with COVID-19, it's a bit difficult to get out there in the field. If we haven't had all our networks and partners that we had aligned ourselves with over the years, it would have been so difficult to reach our people, our vulnerable cancer patients out there in the regions. Through this program, through this partnership between CAN and Bank Windhoek, we have built so many relationships that it's mere the pickup of a telephone to say, can you reach out possibly to this patient? Can you drive to the next village or town to deliver the following care products? This is what networks of hope are all about. Definitely, we need funding, but through that, we also need to say that not all project partnerships are only focused on money. It's also about strategic alliance to make a better impact and to fight better. from our side, I would like to thank our project partners. I've gone through their names here. And if you want to just go on our website and link through the people, the projects, and how we do it. And if you want to connect with me, please feel free to contact. And we can definitely share ideas and bounce around. It's all about hope, and that is what this project tells. An apple a day does help keep cancer away. It's a fun project. It's labor intensive in logistics, but it's all about bringing the right people, the right partners together, and then maximizing and sitting around the table at the end of each year and say, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What are the challenges? And how can we make it better for each other? And then you solidify and cement, and then you build on a good strategic relationship.
So we're going to move into a role play now between Rolf and Sunga. And the target partner is YouSave Community Grocers, and the brand is Your Family is at Our Heart. And so I'm going to turn it over to Rolf and Sunga to lead a role play focused on a value proposition in trying to bring this potential partner into your network.
So thank you very much, Ms. Sunga Lee from YouSave Community Grocers for the time to have a very informal chat about the possibility to work together to make a difference in the fight on cancer in our local community. We know that family is at your heart and your community is at your heart, and it's definitely at our heart as well at the Hope for Cancer Community Care Organization. Thank you for your time during these challenging times of COVID-19. I know we're all a bit scared, a bit flustered, but I think if we work together, we can make it better for our community.
Thank you so much, Rolf, for coming in and reaching out to us. I know we don't have much time, so could you just let me know in a very quick way what you're trying to achieve with this program?
So our Hope for Cancer Community Care Organization was initially established to really help the most vulnerable of cancer patients in our community. We really know that there are poor people in our communities who might need a food basket, who might need fresh produce or some cleaning products. And we generally try to get some care packs together. And we think that perhaps if we work with YouSave Community Grocers, there might be an opportunity to either get discounted or possibly do a drive to help these vulnerable cancer patients. But even more, you have the great access to reach a broader part of the community. You know, you've got doctors and professors and teachers and even students who need to know and be aware about cancer. So we were wondering if perhaps we can not only focus on our care program within our organization, but also our awareness programs and how we can partner on that.
That's really great, and we do share a similar objective. But to be honest with you, Rolf, we get these requests quite a lot because of the advantage that you mentioned. So we're getting requests from other NGOs, the ones who's working with orphans, the ones who is working for environment, all requesting similar a partnership to use our network, to use our just to be clear, what could be in it for us? We definitely want to work towards the community, but at the same time, we are also a business. So we need to make sure that we continue to make profits to be sustainable in our business. And it would be great to understand how this partnership can also enhance that aspect as well.
So definitely honoring all the other organizations that may have approached you. The need is so great out there. We definitely want to make sure that there is a quality value proposition and a sustainable model that we can honestly say that your brand and your store will benefit from this partnership. I think the most important thing is I would like to send you some data and statistics, because this will truly show you that cancer is on the rise globally, but also within our own community. And women who are generally the decision makers in household buying, they are highly affected. Breast cancer is on the rise. And if you allow us to, we'll definitely like to show you how these decision makers are your buyers. And it would be amazing if we can bring our brands together, because this will definitely show that you are a responsible citizen and you are investing back into your community, the health of your community. I think the most important thing is that our reputation speaks of transparency and accountability, where through a possible partnership of supporting the vulnerable people, we actually also allow your patrons to see that you are investing back in the community and that their money is going in the right direction. I think we all want to have that feel-good scenario in our lives, and in these challenging times, how wonderful can it be to show and to tell your buyers, your shoppers, that with every purchase they make, they're actually applying it back into their own community, and making our community a better and safer one.
That's really great. I mean, I didn't know about any of these cancer statistics, whether women suffering is increasing. So if you have data on that, especially data that are based on our community, that would be very useful. And since, Rolf, you mentioned about this challenging time, I have to admit that also our financial situation is not as bright as a couple of months ago when before the pandemic, and we have doing some new business strategy. We're developing how to overcome this pandemic in a better way. And one of the things that we are thinking about is building a better online presence, because that's where now all our community members are going. Do you think this partnership can help us in that sense as well?
I think right now we are all in this position where the new normal is online presence and interactive presence. And from our side as our organization, we've also engaged and excelled and expanded our web and social media platforms so that we can truly engage with our own patients, our own communities and network. It would be wonderful if we could engage your online platforms as well, and we can see how we can match the brands, bring them together and align them so that we speak exactly the same message. We tell the same message. Now, one of the most amazing things right now is that while we know that COVID-19 is a reality and we need to stay at home, we also have online shopping and we also have online deliveries. And how wonderful would it be that if we actually have a joint program, we could perhaps deliver education and tips on cancer to your shoppers, complimentary, and we can just align our two brands together so that once one of your shoppers have purchased something, they have the option perhaps to make a donation in kind. So we definitely do not necessarily want to ask you for funding, because we know money is a bit tight right now, but we can perhaps just create a platform where the shoppers might make a small donation, but we can also just give them some tips and advice, and we can also guide them to a support center that we have online available, and this will just really help and give your shoppers the peace of mind that should any of them, or a member of their families, or even their loved ones, even someone in the community, have been diagnosed or might fear there are possibly they might have a cancer diagnosis, that they can contact our toll-free care center or online chat groups. So I really think that if we do sit down and we look at what your online presence is and our online presence is, we might find a solution where your network and your facilities can match with ours, and we can make a difference in our community.
Well, thank you, Roland, so much. That's a relief. And I thought you were just going for the funding, but now I understand that you have a much broader strategic plan in mind, and that would help our business as well. So yeah, let's definitely continue the conversation, and thank you so much for reaching out.
We look forward to building our smart partnership of hope together.
Thank you both so much. Hopefully you can hear me. I tried to unmute both my mutes. So I just want to thank you both so much. For those of you on the call, Sunga kind of threw Rolf a surprise. That was a lot of improv, and I'm just so grateful both of them with so much experience and perspective were able to join us today on this webinar. So thank you both. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We don't seem to have any questions, so if you do have a question, we have just a couple minutes for question and answer. So go ahead and put your question in the chat box or the Q&A box, and I can facilitate that if you do have a question for either of them. In the meantime, while I'm waiting to see if anyone has a question, I will just let you know that we put together this tip sheet that Ruta will send out by email summarizing some of the content that Rolf and Sunga conveyed today about smart partnerships and thinking kind of beyond a donation for long-term strategic partnerships. And so I'm still not seeing any questions. So if that is, I'll just ask Rolf and Sunga if they have any parting words or final comments they want to make, other than we really would like you to fill out the feedback on our SurveyMonkey evaluation. We really appreciate feedback and use it. We take it very seriously. It will just take a couple of minutes, so please do click on the link in the chat box. That will take you to the evaluation. So with that, any parting words, Rolf or Sunga?
No, thank you so much for inviting us, Mandy. And it was great having this discussion with Rolf, as always.
Yes, I'm always so impressed with both of you and so grateful that you made the time from Geneva and Namibia all over the world to help us out here in the States. So with that, I will give people just a few seconds to click on the evaluation survey link, and we will say goodbye for now. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that this was helpful. And as always, reach out if you have any questions. We'll be sending the slides as well as the tip sheet and the SurveyMonkey link by email. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.